Welcome back to the UTEP Dynasty, everybody, and it's time for another off-season. Season 2, our first in the Mountain West, had some very promising moments, but ultimately ended disappointingly with the loss in the conference championship and then the loss in the bowl game to Virginia Tech. We end up with one more win than we had in year 1, an 8-6 record, and that was with a very difficult non-conference schedule, playing on the road against Oklahoma and Michigan. If you swap that out for maybe an FCS game and a less challenging Power 4 opponent, we might be looking at a 10-4 season. We came into the year with a roster full of transfers that hadn't played together, including our redshirt freshman quarterback, Rich Beelan, playing his first snaps as a college football player. And he had some growing pains early in the season, but really cleaned it up over the course of a 4-game winning streak that started with that triumphant win over Malachi Nelson and UNLV. But unfortunately, we just never figured out how to stop that dynamic passing attack of Hawaii, which ends up being the Mountain West champions in the first year of this new, smaller conference. The story of year 2 was largely written by Raleek Brown, our top-rated player, the speedy running back transfer from Arizona State. He really revived our running game and made us a much more balanced offense. However, he'll only be spending 1 year here in El Paso as he's already graduating, and we're going to have to find a way to replace him. We will also be losing a couple key defensive contributors in linebacker Tay Brown and cornerback Cedric Beavers. But honestly, outside of that, there's not a whole lot of high-rated players leaving. This is a very small graduating class. Tight end Cash Cheeks, edge rusher Derek Burns, punter Noah Botsford, Garrett Hawkins, a depth linebacker, Taylor Perez, a great punt returner for us in year 2, starting right tackle Preston Parsons, and linebacker Jaden Wilson all say goodbye. And while I appreciate every one of these guys, let's be real, most of these players I would want to find an upgrade over in the transfer portal anyway. But we are in the players leaving stage, which means it is time to persuade some of the players who are looking to transfer. We have 6 persuasions to dole out this year, which is thankfully more than the 4 we had last year. And we also have a smaller group of key players who are wanting to transfer in the first place. But unfortunately, 2 key members of our secondary have a very low and low persuasion chance respectively in Jordan Shaw and Messiah Delhomme. Those are both guys that I brought in the transfer portal last offseason and hoped that I would keep them until graduation, especially Messiah Delhomme, who has star development and has 2 years of eligibility left. Running back Lance Barnes also wants to transfer. He's someone that I'd like to keep, as he was our 3rd-string running back until injuries forced him into that bowl game against Virginia Tech, and he ended up having a highlight reel spin move long touchdown run. That definitely got me excited about his future here, but that future is in jeopardy. Raphael Campbell, we persuaded him to stay last offseason, and now he wants to transfer again due to pro potential. Devin Harold, our starting free safety, also wants to transfer due to the pro potential deal breaker. Only 70 overall, had an up and down season with us. Jeff Tracy, maybe a 3rd or 4th string quarterback. Jimmy Childress is definitely someone that I want to keep around, as he was one of those prized 3-star recruits from last season. Didn't make a huge impact this year, of course, as a true freshman, but did have some highlight plays. And then lastly, a guy named Devon Minor. Would love to keep a guy named Minor on the minors. And then a couple of 1-star freshmen that I brought in last year, Emmanuel Huff and Tony Macchiella. Tony, I hate to break it to you, man, but you're 51 overall. Why do you care about playing time? You're not going to play anywhere. But let's get started here, and we'll start with priority number 1, Messiah Delhomme, low persuasion chance. But he stays. That is huge. With his dev trait, he could become one of the best safeties in the country given time. I decided to go with Jimmy Childress next. I want to keep the guys that I recruited myself, but that's not going to happen with Jimmy Childress. He is leaving. Raphael Campbell, another receiver. He is leaving too. A key contributor for us this year, also leaves as our receiver room continues to get thinner. Jordan Shaw, number 1 cornerback, does stick around. So we have good fortune with our secondary players. Shaw had a very low chance, and we beat the odds. We have 2 persuasions remaining, and I'm going to use one of them on Emmanuel Huff, a linebacker who has his speed capped out, but a lot of room to grow in pass coverage, tackling. He is going to be sticking around. And then lastly, we'll try to keep one of our starters from last year. Devin Harold does stay as well. So we go 3 for 3 in the secondary, keeping our core from the season prior outside of the graduating Cedric Beavers. Our biggest losses are probably Lance Barnes, Raphael Campbell, Jimmy Childress. Unfortunately, we just had the 6 persuasions. If we had just one more, probably would have used it on Barnes. But ultimately, we do still have Ty Clark III, and I was looking to find a running back in the transfer portal as well. Moving on to the draft. No one from the minors gets selected. Unfortunately, Raleek Brown's football career will end unless he wants to go to maybe the CFL or something. I think he'd be good there. The national champion Georgia Bulldogs had 5 first-round picks, not to mention a bevy of later-round picks as well. Fluff Bothwell is the highest drafted player. The runners-up, UCLA, only have 5 players drafted, but one of them is Nico Iamaleava. Arch Manning decides to stay in college football one more year. He is not in this draft. Jack Endries is, and the Texas Longhorns have 6 players selected in the top 3 rounds. We played Michigan early in Season 2, and I was shocked by their ridiculous running back depth. 4 of those backs got drafted, including Jalen Buckley, a player we played twice. I also highlighted the insane roster that Tulane had. They ended up being the Group of 5 representative in the playoff, and they have a few guys drafted, including Ashton Stamps. Hey look, Kyle Eford got drafted, a legend of the one-season Georgia Tech Dynasty from last year. And from what I could find, there was only one player drafted from the Mountain West as a whole, and that is Pofele Ashlock, the star receiver for Hawaii. Looks like Malachi Nelson was not drafted after a very good year with UNLV. Looks like he'll be staying in college one more year. And before we open up the transfer portal, wanted to review our recruiting class so far. We have all of our high school battles wrapped up, and our 3 3-star players this year will be edge rusher Khalid Claiborne, wide receiver Cam Clements, and offensive tackle Miles Isaac. It is a much smaller recruiting class this time around, only 13 players total, which means we didn't have to water it down with a bunch of 1-star recruits. We do have 5 of those. And all in all, we're number 68 in the country right now. And looking at some of the competition in the Mountain West, it has definitely surprised me to see that there are other teams recruiting even better than us, at least so far. Wyoming has 7 3-stars signed. That's nice to see, as they were winless last year and could really use a boost from a good recruiting class like this. But seeing a low-prestige school like Wyoming sign 7 3-stars makes me think that maybe my house rules are a little bit too harsh and I should be allowing myself to sign more than 3 3-stars. I'll revisit that house rules discussion at the end of the video once the dust settles on our transfer portal class. But let's go over my initial targets. Brandon Hyde Jr. is the highest rated player who has interest in us. An elusive bruiser archetype running back from Baylor. Only 2 touchdowns scored last season. Not too far behind him is sophomore Jace Clarizio from Michigan State. He had a much better season than Brandon Hyde, 12 touchdowns. I'm adding a lot of running backs to the board, hoping to replace Raleek Brown. I definitely want to find a speed back. Wide receiver is also another major emphasis for me, as we struck out in the transfer portal last year and just had to make do with what we had. Now we're losing 2 more guys in the portal, and I want to make sure that I'm bringing in starting caliber receivers. We'll start here with the 92nd ranked Iverson Hooks, coming from UAB, caught 6 touchdowns last year. And we're getting a lot more initial interest from transfer receivers this time around. We did not have a whole lot last year. Dylan Gresham has us number 1, coming from South Carolina. I know his name because he's on Oregon in real life. I also want to find a good tight end, ideally, as we haven't had great ones so far in the series. Cash Cheeks is graduating. Here is LaShawn Dahl coming from Minnesota. A little bit undersized, but he's a freshman. He's the highest ranked tight end who has interest in us, and hopefully he can be a guy who develops with us. But honestly, more than anything, I think offensive line takes priority. That was also a position that I overlooked in last year's offseason, and we ended up having to roll out a bunch of guys that were 71 overall or lower, looking to change that this time around. And I'm going to start by going after a transfer from Miami, a school known for their offensive line talent. Tommy Kinsler IV, 6'6", 343 pounds. Here's another tackle, Elijah Prather, coming from Troy. And here's a freshman transferring from Western Michigan in KJ Katalik, 6'8". I've got 3 tackles on the board and then 2 interior guys, starting with Kaderil Derby, a right guard transferring from Illinois, only a freshman. And then here's a sophomore from UTSA, Raleek Brown, a center with a pass protector archetype. Of course, we brought in the hopeful quarterback of the future last year with Rich Beadlin, but you never know when quarterbacks are going to want to transfer, so going to try to bring in at least one decent quarterback every season. We're going to be going after Georgia Tech's Tanner Applewhite. Now moving to the defensive targets, I want to upgrade the defensive line, as we've had to rely on a lot of guys rated 75 or lower. Desmond Umeozulu has us only 7th on his board. A little bit lower ranked, but with much more initial interest, is Dakias Brinkley, coming from Kansas. Also has another year of eligibility. The linebacker with the most interest in us is J.J. McGregor, a freshman at Kansas State. And then we go to the secondary, which thankfully is not as high of a priority since we convinced our core guys to stay. But I still would like to find a number 2 cornerback to replace Cedric Beavers, and Kelly Jones seems like a great option. Standing at 6'4", coming from Mississippi State, he is the best cornerback that has interest in us. And then coming from in-conference, San Jose State's Dylan Phelps had 11 pass deflections last season, and also has a lot of height, 6'3". And then even though we kept both our starting safeties from last year, I still would like an upgrade over 70 overall Devin Harold. Jamarcus Ryder is a guy that I'd like to bring in, and there were a couple guys higher ranked, but I wanted to go after a coverage specialist. A lot of those other guys are box specialists. Ryder comes from Baylor. Hopefully he can convince his teammate Brandon High to come over as well. And then looking at strong safeties, I really like the hybrid archetype when it comes to this position, so I'm going to look at Jesse Rich, a freshman from Illinois, just like Kaderil Derby. And then lastly, I wanted to look at bringing in a transfer kicker. Got really tired of not having a good option at that position. Down the stretch of the year, missed a lot of easy field goals. And Mateen Bagani is a name that I've heard of before. He's one of the better kickers in the country. 18 of 20 last year at Fresno State. I know he used to play at UCLA. It looks like Malachi Nelson has again entered the transfer portal. The successful year at UNLV, really the first time he found consistent success in his career, still not good enough for the former 5-star. He wants to go to a better championship contender. I've scouted a few players here in offseason week 1, definitely not all of them. I've scouted a couple running backs, and since I have a couple recruiting upgrades for running backs, which makes them scoutable in less hours, only 30 hours I believe, I gave myself the permission to scout them fully. Brandon High has 87 speed but 93 excel, couple power back badges. He looks really good. Now, do I want someone who's a little bit faster? Yes. This to me looks like just a better version of Ty Clark III, but still I definitely don't think it would hurt to bring him in. Iverson Hooks has 91 speed, 81 medium route running, and a silver juking ability. That's already better ratings than I think probably all of our wide receivers currently. I'm putting hours into both of our cornerback targets, but I've only scouted Dylan Phelps. We know he has 81 man coverage, and since Kelly Jones is so highly ranked, I already assume he's going to have high ratings. But I'm spreading my hours out pretty evenly here in week 1. I've offered scholarships to nearly everyone except a couple of the backup options at some positions. And since I'm not sending the house for anyone yet, Some of our battles are not going great. Brandon High Jr. is heavily favoring Oklahoma State, North Texas, and Air Force over us. Thankfully, we're in first for a handful of guys, including Iverson Hooks, who we currently are the only offer for. Clemson lurking in the distance, though. We get a good head start on Dylan Phelps. Not really worried about any of those other schools in the top 5. Dylan Gresham, we also get a big head start on. And then kicker Mateen Bagani, Raleek Brown, the center. Right guard Kaderil Derby, quarterback Tanner Applewhite, and LaShawn Dahl, the tight end, also have us at number 1. We have some competition for Tommy Kinsler, KJ Katalik, and Dakias Brinkley. And then defensive backs Jesse Rich and Kelly Jones will also be uphill battles. So we actually moved down a spot for Brandon High, and that was when we were sending 25 hours his way. I bumped that up to a 50, send the house. We'll see if that gets us up into the top 3. I've also started to recruit Jace Colorizio, who, by the way, not only went to Michigan State, but grew up in East Lansing. Pretty surprising to see him in the portal. Right now he only has one other offer, which is from Maryland. I also put 10 hours into scouting him. Didn't get much information, but he's an East-West playmaker archetype, so he's probably going to be faster than Brandon High and a little bit better at change of direction. Elijah Prather is being heavily recruited by both Vanderbilt and South Carolina. We made a good bit of progress here, but we are still going to have a hard time competing with those two schools. So I've made the decision to also remove him from the board and instead focus on Tommy Kinsler IV, who only has one other offer. It's from Iowa State. I'd also really like to bring in KJ Katalik, with him being a freshman. I'm also going to be sending the house for him, competing with 2 other Texas schools in Baylor and UTSA. Wow, looks like Texas Tech and North Texas both really want Dakias Brinkley. JJ McGregor got an offer from UConn, and despite initially favoring North Carolina heavily, he has yet to receive an offer from them. And that's good news for us. Kelly Jones also getting a lot of attention from Ole Miss, so sending the house for him. Also sending the house for Jesse Rich, who is heavily recruited by our rival in Hawaii, as well as Air Force. So looking like he might end up in the Mountain West one way or another. And looks like we're going to have to compete with Texas A&M for safety Jamarcus Ryder. I've also added a couple new players to the board, and one that I will immediately start recruiting is sophomore tackle transfer from Kansas State, Caden Massey. I really want to make sure that I bring in at least 2 starting caliber tackles. It would be nice to have one that we can also develop over time. And since the Brinkley battle will be tough, I've also added a redshirt freshman coming from North Carolina in Nico Maggio. He has us at number 1, and we haven't even recruited him yet. And then lastly, we're getting competition for both of our safety targets, so here's a backup option in Wisconsin transfer Matthew Trainer. So as you can probably tell, I've switched the strategy up a little bit in week 2. Week 1, I decided to offer as many players as I can, spread hours out pretty evenly. And then here in week 2, I've removed some guys from the board that haven't gone so well to free up hours that I am now using to send the house on some players. And if you're curious about some of the other high-profile transfers, well, the number 1 player in the portal is Bryce Underwood. The former 5-star quarterback from Michigan. We played him, and he played very well against us. Now he wants to move on. Eli Holstein, a very good quarterback from Pitt, heavily favoring Florida right now, while CJ Carr, formerly of Notre Dame, might be staying in state and moving from private to public. Indiana is the favorites to land him. We advanced to stage 3 of off-season recruiting, and things still looking good for Iverson Hooks. Clemson still not showing interest. Unfortunately, Ole Miss continues to extend their lead on Kelly Jones, but we have moved up to 2nd place for him, and we're in 2nd place for Jesse Rich as well. We've also moved up to number 2 for Dakias Brinkley, but Texas Tech is going to be really hard to compete with. So far, so good with the offensive line battles. We are ahead of Iowa State for Tommy Kinsler IV. We also move into 1st for KJ Katalik, and no competition for Caden Massey here in week 3. We have taken a big lead on UConn for JJ McGregor. And then lastly, we've moved into second place for Jace Clarizio. We're now in third place in the Brandon High sweepstakes, and we figured out his ideal pitch. It's Hometown Hero, which is, okay, but nothing special, unfortunately. He's from Spring, Texas, which is, I guess, on the other side of Texas from El Paso, but still, kind of crazy that we don't at least have an A- for proximity to home. And we have scheduled our first off-season visit. Brandon High will be coming to campus in week 4, so not this week, but next week. I'm pretty sure by the time that I recorded this off-season that they did actually fix the off-season visits and they actually work now. But still, since there's no game bonuses, it's still important to get that complimentary visit boost with another position. So I've done that with Tackle KJ Catholic. They'll be complimenting each other. Hopefully both of these tight battles go our way because of it. I'm now sending the house for 2 running backs in High and Clarizio, but I've also added another to the board. JQ Gray went to Southern Miss and right now does not have an offer. He's 5'8", only 161 pounds, so not a power back. I would expect him to be more of a twitchy type of back, hopefully effective in the receiving game. So we'll be the first to offer him. And I learned my lesson last offseason. Don't add too many players of the same position to the board if they have a playing time deal breaker. That was what almost caused us to lose Raleek Brown. Thankfully, we still got him, but I have made sure that these 3 running backs aren't going to be worried about having too much competition. Unfortunately, I think Ole Miss is just too far ahead for Kelly Jones, so I have decided to remove him from the board. Dylan Phelps has us in first place still, and he seems to be a much more attainable option for us at cornerback. And then Dekias Brinkley, I am making one last big push for. I'm scheduling him for a visit this week. So this week will be for the defensive visits, and then next week will be for the offensive visits. Also, not a great hard sell for Dekias Brinkley. Could be worse. But this is another Texas native who we unfortunately only have B+ proximity to home for. But that is our best grade in his ideal pitch, so we'll have him come with his family. And to get the complimentary boost, I'm also scheduling JJ McGregor, the linebacker that we should be able to land pretty easily, not even giving him a hard sell. I do like to stack visits with pitches whenever possible, so I am giving him the Sunday player soft sell. And we're actually going to fill all 4 of the visit slots for week 3. Jesse Rich will be joining in, and we haven't figured out his ideal hard sell yet. We know that it's either house call or primetime player, but we really want it to be primetime player as it has the A+ playing time grade. So I'm not sure if I've actually tried this before in this dynasty, but I'm going to be using the sway option. Normally I would just double soft sell and then add the 10 hours to max out the 50, but I wanted to try something different this time. And using the sway gives us a chance to get those 3 check marks we want, even if his ideal pitch is house call. Now, I don't fully know if this is the right strategy, as maybe there's a penalty when a player already wants the pitch that you're trying to sway him on. I know sway is normally meant for when you already know a player's ideal pitch and you just want to change it to something different. But this was a really weird situation where we had narrowed it down to 2 different pitches, except one of them is way more advantageous for us than the other. So I want to put all my chips into that pitch that we really want. So the strong safety Jesse Rich will be joined by the free safety Jamarcus Ryder. So we load up on defense this week to stack those complimentary visits. Ryder will be getting 2 of those, and hopefully that is enough to overtake Texas A&M. I have also given Nico Maggio his first offer. And then lastly, we're in danger of losing tight end LaShawn Dahl. We were the only team to offer him for the first 2 weeks of the offseason, and then Iowa all of a sudden swoops in week 3 and makes a huge push. They trail us by just a hair. All right, 3 weeks down, 1 to go, hoping to get some commitments here in week 3 just to make National Signing Day a little bit less stressful. But unfortunately, we do not get any signings. Instead, we get the unfortunate news that we have dropped to third place for Brandon High, second place for KJ Katalik. This is going to be a really important week of visits. Those visits are going to be everything. Checking in quickly on some of the players leaving us, Jimmy Childress has offers from Fresno State and San Diego State, so he looks to be headed to the Pac-12. It is going to take a miracle to pry Brandon High from Oklahoma State. He is inches away from committing to the Cowboys. I do not expect our visit to change that. So, I'm going to be making a change to the visit schedule for week 4. Brandon High is now off the board. We have canceled his visit and we're instead going to be giving it to Jace Clarizio, who we do have competition for. Maryland is ahead of us by a hair, but I would much rather take our chances here than with Brandon High. We do have the hard sell figured out for Clarizio, and we'll be stacking it with a championship contender visit. We only have a B- grade there, so it might not end up being the most effective visit for Clarizio, but he is still giving that complimentary boost to KJ Katalik. And that's going to be key for Katalik, as we have lost first place and now trail behind Arizona State. And then JQ Gray is still uncontested after advancing the week. We should be able to land him. Hopefully 10 hours is enough. I've also scheduled the other 2 visits available for week 4. Tanner Applewhite will be one of them. It's not necessarily for him, as we are still the only team to offer him, but rather for LaShawn Dahl, who is also visiting and will get that boost from his quarterback. We have widened the gap on Iowa just a tad, but this is still a little bit too close for comfort. Another guy where his hard sell is not the best. Now let's check on the results from the visits of last week. Jesse Rich's sway attempt was successful, so either that was his ideal pitch all along, or we actually convinced him to care about getting immediate playing time. So now primetime player is what we'll be giving him as the hard sell. And we have also moved into first place. We've also jumped ahead of Texas A&M for Jamarcus Ryder. Now we didn't quite close on him. Now we have one more week to recruit him while Texas A&M and Oklahoma State are breathing down our necks. This is going to go all the way down to the wire. But that's why you set up backup plans. And a couple weeks ago I added Matthew Traynor to the board. Last week I actually did offer him a scholarship, and now he's going to turn into a high priority target as we prepare to potentially lose one of those safeties. Unfortunately, looks like we're not going to get to Caius Brinkley. Our visit wasn't enough to overtake Texas Tech, and then whoa, SMU out of nowhere jumps way ahead of us for Nico Maggio. I thought he was going to be a slam dunk, as he was without an offer heading into week 3. He had us number 1. I didn't put a whole lot of hours into him, and now we suddenly have some Power 4 competition. So now I'm sending the house. Hopefully that gives us a chance to compete with SMU, but that's a pretty wide gap. JJ McGregor nearing a commitment. I have increased his hours to 50. Iverson Hooks still without another offer. Looks like we're finally getting some receiving talent in the portal. Dylan Gresham did get another offer from San Diego State. I haven't been prioritizing him very much, but now, week 4, giving him 25 hours. Hopefully that's enough to stay ahead. And then to the offensive line. We already know we have a huge visit coming for KJ Katalik, but we now have a solid lead on Iowa State for Tommy Kinsler IV. Still giving him 50 hours to make sure that we stay ahead. Kadarrell Derby, not someone that I've talked about that much this offseason, and that's because we are still the only team to offer Derby. That is shocking to me. I mean, who wouldn't want a freshman transfer who is ranked 147th in the entire country for all positions? And then the same story for both Caden Massey and Briley Brown. We are the only offers for all 3 of those offensive linemen. They all have Memphis as number 2, but Memphis hasn't offered any of them. And then lastly, 2 more players we are expected to land. It's 6'3" cornerback Dylan Phelps and kicker Mateen Bagani. That is all the recruiting we're going to do in this offseason. Let's see how the chips fall. We are going to start off with one we all expected. Mateen Bagani comes from Fresno State to UTEP. Then, quarterback Tanner Applewhite, giving Rich Beelan some competition. Guard Kadarrell Derby, someone we can hopefully keep on the roster a while. Caden Massey commits. Building the offensive line depth, Dylan Phelps commits, a cornerback. Then Dylan Gresham. We have recruited nearly every position here in the transfer portal, looking to transform our team yet again. JQ Gray commits. Iverson Hooks, one of my favorite receivers in the portal. Matthew Traynor, the safety. Riley Brown, the center. Then Jace Clarizio commits, so we get 2 very good-looking running backs to add to the committee with Ty Clark III. And we do get safety Jesse Rich, Tommy Kinsler. Man, this line is going to look way different from last year. Linebacker J.J. McGregor closes it out. So we win most of our battles, not all of them. We don't get KJ Katalik, LaShawn Dahl, Nico Maggio, or Jamarcus Ryder. That's a bummer. I really thought that we would land at least one of those guys, especially LaShawn Dahl. For Katalik, it says we're in a recruiting battle with Arizona State, but of course, it's National Signing Day, so he has to make a decision. That's fine, though. We got plenty of offensive linemen. I'm most disappointed about Dahl and Maggio, as that means we're not going to be bringing in any tight ends for a second straight season, and we're also not going to be bringing in any defensive linemen. Last year, we also struck out on the defensive line. Ty Uhas ended up committing elsewhere, and it looks like it's going to be another year of relying on guys in the low to mid 70s in overall. Ashton Coker, of course, plays above his overall. Elijah Baldwin and Echo Taylor will probably have to be our edge rushers again. But the good news is that we reloaded our backfield. We got 2 quality running back transfers that can hopefully combine to replace the production of Raleek Brown. We also got our Cedric Beavers replacement in cornerback Dylan Phelps, and we got 2 quality safeties in Matthew Traynor and Jesse Rich. We now have 5 very good players in the secondary. That's honestly the strength of this entire team. We also completely overhauled the offensive line and the receiving core. Of course, it would be nice to bring in a good tight end, but I think with our offensive scheme and the fact that we like to go 4 wide a lot of the time, I think it's more important to get a good receiver than a good tight end, and we certainly did that with Dylan Gresham and Iverson Hooks. So it wasn't a perfect offseason, but we still addressed almost all of our weaknesses, and this roster is going to be a lot better and a lot deeper heading into year 3. So the number 1 transfer, Bryce Underwood, leaves Michigan for Duke. I mean, I guess Duke has been one of the better programs so far in this dynasty, and they look even better now. Eli Holstein picks Florida, and CJ Carr indeed goes to Indiana. Malachi Nelson finally finds himself back in the Power 5 as an LSU Tiger. Sounds like a great move for Nelson, right? I mean, he finally plays up to expectations in Vegas, and he gets interest from one of the top programs in the country. Well, unfortunately, there's not even a guarantee he'll start there. Marcel Reed also comes from Ohio State to LSU, and if you remember last year, LSU got JKS from Cal, and he has such a high potential that I thought they would be set at the quarterback position for the next 3-4 years, but nope. Now they have a really interesting quarterback competition. Even though I don't really know what they're doing signing 2-star quarterbacks, they had a great transfer portal season, also signing one of the top defensive players in John Walker. Jimmy Childress ends up picking San Diego State, and it looks like Raphael Campbell also found another home. He's going to Coastal Carolina. Unfortunately, Lance Barnes was not so fortunate, went without any offers in the portal, and it appears we won't be seeing any more of him. I know I could have re-recruited some of the players that were leaving our team. I mean, Jimmy Childress had us as his 5th school on his list, and then I know I lost a ton of players in the last offseason that I could have recruited back, but I don't know. It's not like most of those players had amazing ratings, so if I have a chance to upgrade, I'm gonna upgrade. It just sucks to see some of these guys just go unsigned. I mean, make it make sense. How does a low 70s, mid 70s running back not get signed, while Tony Macchiella, a 51 overall quarterback, gets signed by New Mexico State? I mean, they're picking up our sloppy seconds here. I guess I doubted you, Tony. I didn't think you were going to get an offer, and you just went and shoved it in my face by signing with our biggest rival. Good luck to you, I guess. Devon Minor goes to the Delaware Blue Hens. Maybe you should change his name to Devon Blue Hen. EA, are you joking right now? Am I looking at the number 1 high school recruit going unsigned? It looked like Florida and Texas both pulled their offers even though they had been recruiting him all season. And now, number 1 overall, Ladarius Deal is going to disappear. I mean, how many career-ending injury headcanons are you going to make me come up with, EA? This is getting ridiculous. It almost happened to Colin Simmons last season in the transfer portal, and he got offered by LSU at the last second. But unfortunately, that does not happen with Deal, a 6'3" contested specialist receiver from the Denver area. You know, I know they increased the transfer likelihood dramatically this year, and that kind of threw off the entire mathematics of recruiting, but this really sucks. I would at least love to see some of these players who disappear come back maybe as JUCO recruits. I mean, it would be amazing if they also added Division II or Division III recruits too. That would be pretty cool. I mean, I know MLB The Show does a similar thing. When draft picks go unsigned, they can come back in the next draft. Maybe I'll even do it myself with Ladarius Deal. I might have to recreate him and put him on Colorado State or something. That would be cool. After a couple years at JUCO, he returns to play at the FBS level in his home state and tries to rebuild his career from the ground up. Kind of like a Malachi Nelson-esque revival story. Let me know if you guys would want to see that. But for now, the de facto number 1 recruit is now Luis Estandia, a power back who signed to Ohio State. And I didn't get screenshots of this, but the top 2 quarterbacks, Jake Van Roten and Zeke Lucien, signed to Tennessee and Florida, respectively. When it's all said and done, we end up as the 54th best recruiting class in the nation. So we got our ranking up just a little bit, not too overpowered. We're up to 16 3-star recruits now that we've signed 11 3-star transfers. Not seeing a whole lot of Group of 5 schools signing 4-star recruits. We do end up getting the top class in the Mountain West Conference. Wyoming drops to 3rd as Northern Illinois also jumped ahead of them. Both of those teams got 12 3-stars in total. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I am reconsidering the house rules. I just want to make sure that I'm not completely blowing the other teams in the conference out of the water recruiting-wise. I'm okay with getting the number 1 class, but not by a ton. And these were pretty good results. I think we under-recruited freshmen, and we over-recruited in the transfer portal to compensate for that. I'm okay with balancing it out a little bit. I don't want to completely cap my ability to get good freshmen. So I think my final decision, after gathering a year of data here, is to allow 8 3-star recruits next year. So instead of 3 3s and 5 2s, we're doing 8 3s. And then the rest are 2s instead of being 1s. I'm not really interested in recruiting 1-stars anymore. I don't think 4-stars are quite yet realistic for this team, as no one else in the conference even signed a single one. But I think that could be the next step that this program takes. I want signing those 4- and 5-star recruits to be very rewarding. I think that day will come, but it's probably not going to be next season. We probably have to have a conference championship or at least a 9-win year before that happens. It's going to feel good when it does. The number 1 recruiting class is Ohio State, who got the top running back, Luis Estandia. Also got a whole lot of pass rushing talent. Georgia, Oregon, Alabama, and Florida round out the top 5, but Ohio State runs away with this. They got 6 5-stars. It is now dev trait time. We can see the dev traits of all of our players. We can't see those unscouted ratings, though. We'll start with the offensive line. Kadarrell Derby has impact dev. And turns out all the O-linemen we signed have impact. Tommy Kinsler, Raleek Brown, and Caden Massey. Jace Clarizio, impact development. JQ Gray only has normal. Iverson Hooks has impact development. Dylan Gresham only with normal. Our quarterback Tanner Applewhite has impact. And remember, Rich Beelan only has normal. So Applewhite has a chance to be even better as he is transferring after just his freshman season. JJ McGregor, impact development linebacker. Matthew Traynor has impact. And now the big reveal, Jesse Rich, a freshman safety, has star. That is the best dev trait that we get in this portal class. No elites, but a freshman with star development is very, very exciting. We also have the chance to change some positions on National Signing Day. We'll start by moving Tommy Kinsler inside to a guard position. Remember that we have Ellis Davis at left tackle, and he has a few years left, so really we only needed to replace our right tackle this year. I think Tommy Kinsler would be very good at that position, but I also think we need more strength on the inside of the line, and Kinsler is the best power run blocker that we have signed this year, so he's going to be our left guard. And to address the problem at defensive line, specifically edge, I've come up with an idea. Kevin Cordero came on as an athlete, and for his first season, he stuck to his default position of linebacker. However, I found out he also has plenty of pass rushing talent, and moving him to edge actually makes him one of the better speed rushers on the team. Of course, we still have Taylor and Baldwin, but Cordero actually, since he's a linebacker, brings a lot more run-stopping ability than those two. We'll see his ratings in just a little bit when I check on some of our player development and skill caps, but right now you can see he's a 70 overall speed rusher, which is actually better than his original linebacker rating of 66. The next stage of the offseason is training results, so we'll get to see how much better our players get. But first, you'll see that we gained 8,000 XP for Aaron Jones, giving him plenty of points to upgrade. And we have a dev trait upgrade for TJ Tillman. He's someone that I've been very excited about since the beginning of the series. And now he has a chance to really develop. He's been playing as our nickelback so far, and he will probably start there again in year 3. Quickly before we look at ratings, let's upgrade Aaron Jones. And since we have 34 upgrade points to spend, we're going to be unlocking the recruiter tree. I think this is a good time to unlock it as we're about to take a major step in recruiting next season. And there you go. Here's what our team is looking like in year 3. Messiah Delhomme is now our highest rated. At 90 overall, he takes an 8-point jump. Jordan Shaw's an 87. And we had quite a few other players who made impressive leaps. We're going to go over everything in positional order, offense to defense. Let's start with the quarterback. Rich Beelan enters his sophomore season at 81 overall. He's still the highest rated on the team. I really thought that he would upgrade his throw power, but it stays at 85. Meanwhile, his accuracy nearly maxed out. He's by no means a bad quarterback. He is a very good runner of the football, but I wanted to see a little bit more growth from him, and he does have some solid competition now. Colt Sparks, now a 78, and the newcomer, Tanner Applewhite, comes in at a 77 with 94 throw power, significantly better than both Beelan and Sparks. And as a redshirt sophomore, he could have as much as 3 years to develop with us. Jace Clarizio looks like a worthy replacement for Raleek Brown. 90 speed, 83 overall. JQ Gray is an 81, also with 90 speed, some good route running ability. Has the shifty badge, so neither of these backs are as dynamic as Brown, but I do think they can fill that same role for the offense, especially with a better line. Ty Clark, unfortunately, nearly maxed out with his skill caps, and he had some good development. He looks like pretty good back, but unfortunately, not going to get much better. Iverson Hooks, the transfer from UAB, comes in at 86 with 93 speed, great route running, and he is immediately the best receiver we've had in this series. Dylan Gresham looks like a solid number 2, but unfortunately, his route running is not the best. Seems like he's more of a playmaker, a guy who can make plays in space. He's got a gold 360 ability. Now, Jalen Brown, a returner, unfortunately is maxed out at 78 overall. He's been very good as our big body receiver, and at least we know we're getting the same player next year. We do give him a downhill break tackle ability. Wandame Davis, still only a 76, and he is also nearly maxed out. Good route running, good agility, but still struggles with catching. He's not going to have to play as much next season with the added receiver depth, same with Marcus Torres. He and Davis are going to be solid number 3, number 4 receivers for us. Eduardo Polanco did not get any faster, come on! Still an 82 speed, 5'9 receiver. I mean, look, he has so much room to grow with that quickness cap, but just didn't spend any points on it. Instead, he's maybe the best route runner on our team. What good is an 89 deep route if you have 82 speed, though? Also does not have a great pair of hands. But I want to look at freshman Cam Clements. Already coming in with much better speed and really good skill caps. He could be really good in a couple years. Remember, he has impact development. It's going to be another year of relying on some pretty low-rated tight ends. Noah Stevenson, still our highest rated. A pure blocker archetype. Unfortunately, he is capped out. Isaac Rudolph is going to be our main pass-catching tight end. He is lower rated, but he is better than Stevenson as a receiver. Now let's take a look at some of our offensive line skill caps. And first, we have some bad news. Ellis Davis. We saw his not-so-great skill caps when we first signed him. He is already maxed out. Fortunately, he's a good pass-protecting left tackle, but definitely disappointing that he's not going to get better as a run blocker. Tommy Kinsler is a senior, so his skill caps are kind of irrelevant. He's already pretty good. Caden Massey has some run blocking upside, but pass blocking already in a pretty good spot. Kaderil Derby comes in as a sophomore with some solid skill caps. All I ask is that our young lineman can get better in both run blocking and pass blocking, and he checks both of those boxes. Raleek Brown is the lowest rated transfer lineman that we brought in. Still an upgrade over last year's center. And lastly, here's the skill caps for perhaps our crown jewel of last year's high school class, Miles Isaac. Comes in at 70 overall with a star development. Great skill caps all across the board. Not quite good enough yet to play right off the bat, but he could be playing as early as a year from now. To the defense we go, and boy am I excited about this secondary. Messiah Delhomme is now one of the best safeties in the entire nation. In the past, we have struggled to force interceptions as a defense, but I think that changes this year. Delhomme has all the abilities he needs to be one of the best ball hawks at the safety position. Matthew Trainer, probably going to start opposite him, and while he is maxed out, it doesn't matter as he is a redshirt senior. I like that he's a box specialist who actually has solid coverage ratings. Meanwhile, Jesse Rich, the star development safety, already takes a 7-point leap. It's like we brought in Messiah Delhomme all over again. Look at this guy's skill caps. And I know we already have 2 higher rated safeties in Delhomme and Trainer, but I'm going to have to find a way to get Rich on the field. But it wasn't just the safeties that got better, the cornerbacks did too. Jordan Shaw has pretty much reached his potential with us, and I'm really excited about that platinum jammer ability. We've built an identity running a lot of man coverage on this defense, and I think that's going to be our identity again. Dylan Phelps also fits that mold as a 6'3 man cover corner. TJ Tillman, of course, got that dev trait increase, but he appears to have spent pretty much all his upgrade points on things other than pass coverage. Still only a 63-man, 71 zone. Of course, he is a very good tackler. His development is definitely far from complete. Stratton Schufelt now enters his senior season with us. And with Tay Brown now gone, Schufelt becomes that every down middle linebacker for us once more. He's joined now by the transfer J.J. McGregor, who unfortunately is already capped out as a sophomore. He does at least have 85 zone coverage, though. That's nice. Definitely some bad luck there on J.J. McGregor. Kevin Cordero, though, here are his skill caps at his new position, and you can see he has a chance to be a great speed rusher, already 74 overall, has the quick jump ability, and I'm really excited to see what he does this year. Nice to have a guy who can both defend the run and the pass at that position. Kofi Taylor Barracks, What are you doing, man? I've been waiting for you to upgrade your pass rush this entire series. He still hasn't gotten either rating above 70. He's still freakishly athletic and a very good run defender, and might find himself onto the field more next season, but still, that is disappointing. Echo Taylor, now a senior, and he might lose his starting spot. 72 overall, maxed out. We also have an exciting newcomer in Khalid Claiborne, the freshman, still very raw with his pass rush, but has a lot of strength, and he could already help us as a run defender. 83 block shed, 78 tackle. And those pass rush skill caps could allow him to grow a considerable amount over time in that aspect of the game. Ashton Coker, after a career season, now enters his senior year as a 77. 89 power moves. He is going to continue to be very good. Shaquan Bowser, also one of our better powerful pass rushers. I moved him inside to D tackle, although he can play on the edge as well. He is also a senior. Kicker Mateen Bagani has 97 power, 91 accuracy, and has those platinum abilities. We got potentially the best kicker in the entire country this year. So much better than Lee Alfaro, who is only a 58 overall, even after an off-season of development. He did up his accuracy from 54 to 64. I think we have some higher standards than that now. We did not upgrade over Michael Kudovides at punter. 76 punt power, 76 accuracy, and unfortunately not a whole lot of room to get better. Finally, let's look at some of the players near the back of the depth chart who could eventually maybe become contributors. 71 overall quarterback Nico Amano honestly has some very good skill caps. As a senior, he could become maybe an 80 overall player. Mason Ferguson had the one good game last year, didn't do much else. Quality depth receiver, but not sure we're going to be needing him much anymore. One of the bigger jumps is Rudy Moreland, who is up from a 61 to a 69. He's only a sophomore, so he could see the field for us if he keeps improving like that over the years. Dante Horner, 64 overall receiver with impact development. Unfortunately, 81 speed, probably not going to get much faster. Toby Takeoff, our first ever commit, is now a 65 overall corner with a lot of room to grow. Darren Kesey, same thing. He's up to a 63 as a redshirt freshman, and he had a very peculiar offseason, upgrading his tackling and catching ratings by a lot. His zone coverage went up by a considerable amount as well, but his skill tree doesn't exactly match that. I'm not sure what happened there. And we're seeing a similar pattern with a lot of our former one-star recruits. They've gotten a lot better this offseason. Still have a lot of room to grow. Let's look at the rest of our incoming freshmen. 62 overall guard Jaden Stubbs. Could be something in a few years. Clay Weinstein, a receiving back. Unfortunately, not going to get much faster. A little bit disappointed with these skill caps. Next we have 59 overall defensive tackle Dante Shakir. I think he does have the chance to develop into a rotational run stuffer for us, but gonna take some time. Alex Genus, we brought in a high school kicker. Better than Alfaro, but honestly not by that much. 69 accuracy, that's a better starting point. Cornerback Devin Travis has a lot of upside in zone coverage, but right now he's very raw. Connor Flavors, an offensive lineman, could become a solid pass protector. And Stephon Montague, a safety, a coverage specialist, capped out at 80 speed. That is not good enough. Bernie Muhort's speed is also capped out at 83, and we have not had great luck recruiting high school running backs in this series. Reggie Molinaro, 84 speed, not going to get any faster. Pretty bad skill caps there. Sam Ilaoba is a guy that I am hopeful for. Impact development, does not have maxed out speed, has a lot of deficiencies right now, especially in run supports, but he could actually be all right. So that is the breakdown of our new roster, and now we can see our new overall rating, 69, up 11 from last year. Unfortunately, our team prestige has not gotten much better. We're only up to 1.5 from 1 star last year. Of course, the first thing I checked after looking at our team was to see whether Malachi Nelson would start for LSU, and my worst fear ended up coming true. He is going to be the third stringer. behind Jaron Keawe, Sagapolatelli, and Marcel Reed. It looks like JKS is going to be the starter again as a sophomore. I'm not sure why LSU went through all that effort signing 2 quarterbacks, but this is an EA game after all, and unfortunately Malachi Nelson gets the short end of the stick. I was going to put whoever he transferred to on the schedule so we can play him again, because that was such a great game last year against UNLV, but if he's not playing, not going to really be worth it anymore. Here are the highest rated players in the nation right now. Sam Levitt and Arch Manning are tied at 97 overall. So Texas is looking really scary. They've got the best receiver as well in Ryan Wingo. And guess what? We've got them for our first game of the season. That's going to be a major measuring stick game for our program after we got destroyed by them back in year 1. We're going to have to play them again. And that's not a custom scheduling choice by me. They're actually scheduled to play this year. The top running back in the nation is Richard Young of Alabama, redshirt senior. And the top O-lineman is Wisconsin's Nathan Lemieux. Maybe Wisconsin is back. The top defensive player in the nation, with the coaching boosts at least, is defensive tackle Terrence Green of Oregon. They've also got the top tight end in Jamari Johnson. And then in the secondary, the best player is only 94 overall, Jakeem Jackson. Looks like a stud for LSU. All right, so we have over-recruited by 5 players. Maybe got a little carried away in the transfer portal, but hey, if I had another chance, I'd probably do it again. This roster needs to get deeper. So we're going to start by cutting Mason Ferguson, a sophomore receiver. Never going to forget that Nevada game, though. Center Cam Weeks, and then a guard in Ron Fajoko, who I did recruit, but I don't know, I just didn't like his skill caps, and we have better options at the position, including Javier Vincent. I'm also going to cut edge rusher Jamal Durant Andrews. We haven't seen him play at all since the series has started, and he's already maxed out. You can see the 15 tokens for him. And then linebacker Vashawn Brunswick II. Cutting him will get us down to 85 players, but hey, I just decided to keep going because there's still plenty of players that I really just don't want on the roster. Maybe that's illegal. I mean, I guess we're just cutting costs going under 85 scholarships, but I guess we did just spend a boatload of NIL money in the portal. So now I guess we're cutting some corners. Grant Stewart will be cut. Was it necessary? I don't know. Probably shouldn't have done this, but I don't think he was going to play very much for us. Same with Bryce Booty, who I do think deserved to be cut. 82 speed as a safety just isn't going to cut it. And then sorry Lee Alfaro, but you're just not that good at this kicking thing. You might have to go find a different career. You still got a couple years left of college. Make the most of it. Okay, it is scheduling time. And you can see that week 0 matchup against Texas. We, of course, are going on the road again. They're not going to come to our house. And then for the rest of our non-conference schedule, we have New Mexico State on the road. For the first time in the series, we're going to their house after hosting them twice. Colorado State and Coastal Carolina. So Colorado State I mostly pick just because they're an old member of the Mountain West, and it would be nice to play some of those Pac-12 schools like Boise State, San Diego State now that they have Jimmy Childress. Probably should have scheduled them. And then Coastal Carolina, not a very strong program currently. They went 5-7, not a highly rated team whatsoever, but they do have Raphael Campbell, our former receiver, and he is now 82 overall, their top receiver. The Chanticleer's got a good one, even though he is mostly to his potential already. He had some good moments for us over 2 years, including a kick return touchdown. What do you say we let him return to the Sun Bowl? So that's our non-con schedule. I'm going pretty light on the competition outside of Texas because I know Texas is going to be really tough. Last year, having 2 very good Power 4 teams in the opening weeks of the schedule was not very fun. We got destroyed by both Oklahoma and Michigan, and I think having only one of those mismatched games gives us maybe more of a chance to build some momentum and rhythm going into conference play. We will start conference play against UNLV, who unfortunately does not have Malachi anymore. Then we go on the road to face San Jose State, and then to Hawaii, the team we had the most trouble with in Season 2, losing to them twice. And then a 3rd straight road game against New Mexico. They had a solid year last year, but they didn't look too great against us when we played them in the last game of the year. And then we get Nevada at home, NIU on the road, and then we finish it off with 2 straight weeks at home against Air Force and Wyoming. Air Force might have been the most frustrating game in Season 2, as I really thought we were going to beat them, but we just had no answer for their option attack all game long. They destroyed us. And then here in this offseason, it's not like we made any changes to our defensive line. I'm really hoping it's not going to be more of the same. At least we get them at home. And then Wyoming, of course, winless last year, but they had a very good recruiting class. So that's going to be interesting to see if it leads to immediate success on the field. We have reached the preseason of year 3, and that means I have constructed my initial recruiting board, and you can see there's a lot more 3 stars on there. Let's take a look at some of our top targets for next season, including Manu Shin. He is an athlete tight end prospect, and since we're able to scout receivers and tight ends fully in 30 hours, I have fully scouted Manu Shin. Not a whole lot of attributes that jump off the page, but the 80 strength looks very good. And I'm just trying to find a reliable option at tight end since we haven't really recruited well at that position yet. I want another big body receiver, possibly even someone bigger than Jalen Brown, and I think I found that in Patrick Bliss. Of course, 83 speed, not ideal, but hopefully the 6'5 makes up for it. All of his route running are in the 70s to start. 88 acceleration, not bad at all. 80 release. We really have not had this archetype of receiver yet in the series. And maybe he even plays tight end, who knows. Here's a well-rounded offensive line prospect in Thaddeus Davies. 78 pass block, 72 run. He's got a mental ability. Could end up being a gem. And here's another guard in Kevin Arcuri. Has a raw strength archetype. Maybe not going to be the best pass blocker. Only 57 pass block finesse. He better have at least 90 strength. Sam Yee, a power rusher, also gets a scholarship offer from us. 79 speed, 74 power moves, 67 finesse is in a good spot as well. I definitely want to make defensive line an emphasis in this recruiting class. Here's a thumper linebacker in Daryl Papo, who has solid zone coverage at 72, 80 speed. Hopefully that can get better. And then we're hoping Fernando Govea can be a Stratton Schufelt replacement, signal caller archetype, 79 tackle, 69 man coverage, so you'd think the zone is at least at 69. I think we found a pretty good crop of 3 stars to recruit. Of course, we can only target 8 at a time. I have quite a few others added to the board, but only 1 more scholarship that I can offer to a 3-star. And we may have the same coordinators, but I think I'm going to be making a defensive scheme change. I'm going from the 3-3-5 to the 4-2-5. And I'm definitely not opposed to a 3-safety defense. I mean, we do have 3 starting caliber safeties after all in Matthew Traynor, Jesse Rich, and Messiah Delhomme, but I'm just not a huge fan of those 3 down linemen, 3 linebacker formations that I've had to call just because, that's been our playbook. The 4-2-5 does have some 3-3-5 formations in there, so we're not completely losing that element, but I just like the flexibility that this playbook offers. I want to have more players down in run support near the line of scrimmage. I think that'll help us contain the outside run first and foremost. We really struggled with that in some games. And the big nickel formation is one of my favorites, especially for our roster, because that puts our starting strong safety, which would be Messiah Delhomme, into that big nickelback role. So he would be playing cornerback while also functioning as somewhat of a box safety with 2 high safeties over the top. So that's going to be the formation that I call the most when I want to get Jesse Rich onto the field, the redshirt freshman. So we're not losing the 3 safety looks, we're just adapting them, changing them a little bit to fit our needs. And not only that, but I've actually gone in and adjusted it. My first attempt at a custom defensive playbook. And really all I did was just add some 3-4 to it, because I just want to have some more options for obvious run situations like 4th and short, other than, like a goal line formation. I don't think this is going to be a huge part of our defense. I still want to have 5 defensive backs most of the time, especially because of those 3 great safeties. On offense, I didn't make a huge amount of changes, but I'm always adding new formations to the playbook, maybe taking out a couple. I've got a new wing trips formation in there. I like this shuffle wheel wide drag play, and I'm really excited about this shotgun wide trips with 3 receivers split way outside to the right. And I think that's going to open up our screen game, our RPO game, like this triple slant play. I think bubbles are going to be pretty nasty out of this formation, and then speed option as well. I also think this could be a good formation to take deep shots out of because it really puts that safety on the right side of the field in a bind. And just for the heck of it, I put some I formation in there. I form close has been added. I think now that our offensive line is a lot better, I want to lean on it. We've also got a good blocking tight end in Noah Stevenson, who could be somewhat of a fullback for us. And I think we are a lot more equipped now to run a play like stretch out of I formation. Also, bootlegs will be nice out of this. So that brings us into our fall camp, spring practice, whatever you want to call it. It's just practice mode, playing with our new team, with our new playbook installs. And it was very apparent playing with this team that we have a lot more flexibility on the offensive end with that improved line. That time it was Messiah Delhomme forcing a fumble on Jaylen Brown, but this was a great play by Jaylen Brown on a wheel route, gets open in the end zone. Thielen put it right on him, and this was a nice throw to Wanda May Davis out of that shotgun wide trips formation. I was experimenting with that a lot in the practice. What did I say about attacking vertically with that formation? It also opens up the middle of the field for our running back, Jace Clarizio. What a rep there. He felt really good in these practice runs as Jaylen Brown makes another contested catch. I swear he does not play like a 78 overall. I keep saying that because it's true. First look at Dylan Gresham, our new shifty athletic receiver. Excels with the ball in his hands. And that's a nice interception in deep coverage from TJ Tillman, who just got impact development. There's Isaac Rudolph running a nice corner route. Encouraging to see him make a play despite his low rating. Another dime, that time to Iverson Hooks, our highest rated wide receiver pickup. Jaylen Brown making another play over the middle of the field. He also excels as a ball carrier. And Beelan was playing really well. I felt more locked in, controlling him than I did in last season's off-season practice when I threw a ton of interceptions. And this is J.Q. Gray, our new receiving specialist in the backfield. He's got that shifty ability, which makes him really fun to use. Dylan Gresham, also with that spin move ability, he's going to be fun. Nice catch and run there. Here's another look at Jace Clarizio weaving through the defense. I'm not saying he's Raleek Brown, but I'm saying he could be. He felt really, really good. J.Q. Gray did as well. Look at him making a cut to the outside and winning the race to the pylon. That was one of the plays of the day. That shifty badge makes a lot of difference. Beelan steps up in the pocket here and makes a great scramble up the middle. As great of a runner as Beelan is, he didn't get a ton of rushing yards last year. Gonna look to use that skill of his more in year 3. And now here's a look at another really intriguing quarterback. Tanner Applewhite getting his first snaps in with his new team. J.Q. Gray stealing the show there with a sick back juke. And what a dart thrown in there to Jaylen Brown, showing great chemistry with him right off the bat. And that was laid in right in front of the safety. Already his arm talent is apparent. Dylan Gresham showing off the spin move that he's so good at. And now handing off to Jace Clarizio inside, swerving around Matthew Traynor. Trainor's got to make that tackle. But using Applewhite and his rocket arm, that was a bad play, picked off by Traynor. But it felt a lot different than the 85 throw power of Beelan. I've gotten used to having a quarterback with a pretty weak arm, and it hasn't exactly burned me yet. But having a quarterback like this out there would make me a lot more aggressive as a downfield thrower. What a play, by the way, from Dylan Phelps, winning that 50-50 ball for the interception. Jalen Brown, nice one-handed catch there. Applewhite threw his fair share of picks as he was, learning this scheme, and I was learning to control him. But his highlight plays were definitely memorable. Marcus Torres there on the reception. Now Applewhite putting his mobility on display, escaping the pocket, firing back over the middle to Dylan Gresham. That was nice to see. Applewhite not necessarily known for his mobility, but he's not the slowest guy in the world. JQ Gray looks like an incredible third down back option. He and Clarizio are going to be a great combo. And I might just have to say it. Clarizio has a chance to be Raleek Brown, possibly even better with the lanes he's getting from the O-line. What a diving catch there from Iverson Hooks. Feels really nice to have a true number one receiver talent again. Applewhite now escaping the pocket, outrunning the pass rush, and getting Gresham involved once more. I definitely came away from my first action with Tanner Applewhite feeling good. I was definitely impressed with his arm. This throw right here, I'm not sure Beelan could make. He fires it to the running back, JQ Gray, who was lined up out wide and ran a go route and won the jump ball. And there, he takes a hit and puts it right in the bucket for Hooks. The thing is, though, Rich Beelan also looked good. So I'm not sure if I've seen anything that warrants a quarterback change just yet. Just know that we do have a very trustworthy backup that could maybe be a starter if Beelan does struggle. Here's a first look at our new kicker, Mateen Bagani. Hit that first kick off the crossbar, but it was not 100% power. But when I do get full power, he is just nailing these kicks, and he does have the ability that prevents the overkick penalty from happening as often. I even tried intentionally missing a kick to get his composure lower, and even with the shaking meter, I was still money with Bagani. So happy to have a great kicker after what happened last year. I have slightly tweaked my sliders for year 3. Feel free to screenshot these if you want to implement them. It's really not too much different from Operation Sports Mat 10. That's what I used as the base and then made my own tweaks. I have CPU run blocking at 65, tackling at only 44 for both teams. What I really wanted to highlight was the injury and wear and tear sliders. I have injuries at a pretty high value to make up for the low and very conservative wear and tear values. I do not want a repeat of what happened to Raleek Brown and Hassan Wilson back in year 1. I already plan on running a pretty evenly distributed committee for our running backs, and I want to make sure that their wear and tear is not way out of control like it was in the past. So normal tackle impact is all the way down to 15. Hit stick and defender tackle advantage are both still at 40. Those are the highest values. Impact block at 35, cut stick at 35. So those still have a chance to accrue some wear and tear on those plays, but for normal tackles, I want there to be pretty much no wear and tear at all. And I'm continuing with my philosophy of low rate of wear and tear and low rate of recovery. I have week-to-week recovery still at 50, but I have decreased the values for per play, per timeout to 20 and 30, and then the in-game healing reserve pool down to 25. So players are not going to be magically healing very much during games. And hopefully, also their season wear and tear bar and career wear and tear bar won't be getting way too low, way too fast. So that is going to conclude a very eventful offseason. Every offseason is eventful in college football, but I'm really excited about the team that we have built for year 3. Week 1 or week 0 is not going to be an easy test taking on number 13 Texas. But the goal is to at least make it a closer game than we had back in year 1. I think that's very possible for us, especially if we take care of the football and just stay committed to our game plan instead of forcing things. That was our downfall last time. I honestly believe our secondary can match up with any receiving core in the nation. Texas might be the best in the nation, but still, I feel like we're better equipped to handle a receiving core like that than pretty much any other group of 5 team. But yeah, like I said, this is a measuring stick, and we're going to get to see right away how far we've come as a program in just 2 seasons. After this game, it's going to get a whole lot easier. So this could end up preparing us for the rest of the season, as we've already seen the best of the best. I mean, I'm not even sure that 13 is a fair ranking for Texas. I think they should be higher, potentially even top 5. Arch Manning is tied for the highest rated player in the country, not just quarterback. 97 overall. We've already seen how great he can be back in year 1, and now he is a redshirt senior trying to become the #1 pick in the NFL draft. What a way to kick off year 3 of the UTEP Dynasty. So I'm very excited to get that video out, the beginning of year 3. If you've made it this far here in the off season, thank you for being such a great supporter of my channel. Hopefully you're enjoying the Group of 5 mid-major grind as much as I am. I think it's been pretty rewarding to see this roster get so much better, have so much more star power than we started with. And that's even with the recruiting house rules that I set. Now I'm loosening them, so we have a chance to get our best high school recruiting class yet and really take a step as a program. Let me know what you guys thought of the off-season moves down in the comments. I'll try to respond to every one of them in due time, and hopefully I can get year 3 on the way very quickly. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, long as it may be. If you did, I would really appreciate a comment with some feedback, a like on the video, subscription to the channel. Make sure to turn on post notifications while you're at it, and recommend me to a friend. Have a good rest of your day, everybody, and I will see you for the year 3 kickoff against Texas, coming sooner rather than later. Take care, everybody.